to Champion Your Culture, the podcast, a weekly live show where we explore the power of culture and leadership in business. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers, and we go live every week to learn from each other and hear from other experts about how to effectively champion our team members and ourselves. So join us live every Wednesday on our social networks or subscribe. You can listen to Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Now, I can't hear myself.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, hey, we're back. And a minute and a half later, we found out that we couldn't hear ourselves. Therefore, you couldn't hear us. So we just had a really long, great conversation about how George wears way too many shirts to every event he goes to. I am so sorry about all that.
Hey, you know, we're 30 plus episodes into this, and we deserve a blooper.
38, and we're live every single week. So, you know, sometimes I watch award shows and stuff. Who was it that opened up and said the wrong winner?
You talking about that was Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey,
yeah. And the winner is that was the second place winner. Can you imagine in that moment being so excited about winning only to lose?
I know.
That's our come on man of the day. That's the
right,
one thing.
Yeah,
that's the one thing.
That's our business. Come on, man.
Come on. But hey, see, this is why we can't do this together. We have too much fun. We want to welcome everybody on Champion Your Culture today, sponsored by Culture Good. Myself and Ryan, we're so glad that you're joining us today. And as always, we appreciate you for allowing us to have 30, 45 minutes of your time to really, share, some best practices, strategies, research data on all things culture and leadership. We're both passionate about that, and that's what we do. Culture Good, has blessed us with the opportunity to do what we're passionate about. And
that's it, man.
It's great.
And I appreciate everyone spending a minute and a half of their morning trying to figure out why their volume wasn't working on their computer. That was our fault. Anyway, yeah. Thank you, Culture Good. Also, Lighthouse Research, with the data. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many wonderful partnerships that we're forming. And we would love the opportunity to have conversations around your culture, your leadership development, where you are as a company. What does X look like? And what does Y look like? What is your end goal for your leadership and for your culture? What does success look like? Edgar asked a really good question yesterday. He's part of our team, Edgar Cabello. I want to give a shout out to him with Lippert and all the amazing leadership work that's going on through their organization and that movement of leadership. He asked a really good question. He said, if we were to grade the culture at the end of the year and to give the culture of a business an A+, what does A+ look like? Because A+ looks different for different organizations. Some companies are really interested in certain soft skill development and training, and that's really what they want to see happen. Yeah. Others may say, you know what, we just don't have as much accountability as we need. By the end of the year, if we had a culture of accountability, that would be an A+. Yeah. I think it's really important to understand that culture isn't going to look the same in each company. each leadership development opportunity that we have, how we lead teams, how we're being led, all of the components of what a culture is made of.
Mm-hmm.
Really, when it comes down to it, we have to understand that we're never going to find a culture of sameness in every single company. And that's what makes a company special. That's why we say that your culture is your heartbeat. It's the soul of your company. You know, when we talk about bringing your soul to work, we also have to want to bring our soul to a place that has a soul.
Yeah. There's no purpose of bringing your soul to a dead place,
to a place that has no soul.
Unless you, of course, are going to be there to revive it. But really, that's not the sole purpose, and it's not up to one individual, right? When it comes to bringing your soul to a dead place, how do you revive and bring energy to a workplace that has no soul, that has no purpose, that has no heartbeat? I want to make sure people understand that there's no more heroes, superheroes. That energy is no more. You really need a collaborative team. And we always say it starts from the top. It has to start from the top. One of my favorite top 5 clips of any movie is Remember the Titans. Attitude reflects leadership, Captain. Yeah. And I say that about culture. Culture reflects leadership.
Yeah. And I would say this too, like with this conversation today, it does start on top. But when we think about leadership, I just want us to take a moment. I do this sometimes when I get on stage and do keynotes, right? So that's something else I want to mention. If you have an event coming up, George and I would love to be a part of that. We can do that together individually. But one of the things that I do is I have people close their eyes and get a picture of a leadership structure in their head. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, if we would. Let's go ahead and close our eyes. Let's think about a leadership structure. Where is the leader positioned in that structure? All right. Okay. Now open up your eyes. It's that simple. Yeah. Most of the time we think, where is the leader positioned? Yeah. Up top. We even use the terminology top, right? So we say, well, it starts on top. Really what we're talking about today is it starts out front. Yeah. So today's topic is being able to shift our imagination even around what leadership looks like, where leadership is positioned. Is leadership a position? Yes. Yeah. It's not a title, it is a position, because leaders are positioned out front. Yeah. Positioned on top is a different type of leadership structure, right? The hierarchy type leadership. One thing that I think is really interesting, George, and then I want to hear your thoughts about this. For decades, there's been a teaching within business around the alpha wolf. Okay. You know this, right? 1947, they started studying wolf packs, right? You remember Hangover, the wolf pack?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Leave no man behind.
Right. And then somebody ends up on a mattress on the top of the building. Yeah. So the wolf pack idea is this. There's an alpha wolf, right? There's a secondary wolf that kind of gets the commands from the alpha wolf and keeps everyone in place and steady. That's in the vision of business. We can see how this starts to play out in the philosophy of how business is supposed to work. Alpha male or alpha wolf on top. And then you have all these other secondary hierarchy wolves based on less strength, skill, ability. Okay, you've heard that before, right? Yeah. Then there was a whole book that came out about it. And now what they've come out with is that the 2 studies that were done that created the entire philosophy around the alpha wolf kind of pack, where you have one on top and there's a hierarchy of leadership. Both of those packs of wolves that were studied in captivity.
Yeah. So when there's not a lot of freedom, right? When you're stuck and locked in and trapped into, it's not your, it goes even further, right? What happens when you take a leader out of its rightful environment, right?
And what does that mean?
And what does that mean for them? I always say great leaders adapt.
Yeah.
But you don't want to put a leader in an environment or a corner
Yeah.
where they feel pressured, overwhelmed, and maybe attacked, right?
Because when they do, they start becoming that alpha wolf type, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, it's that whole
So
captivity
crazy,
mindset is crazy because you're forced to become something that you're not, but you can be if you get pushed to be.
Yes.
Right. I don't ever, when I argue, this is my arguing voice.
Yeah.
My wife hates it. But if I do raise my voice, you know that you went way, way far. For me to raise my voice and yell.
And when I raise my voice and yell, I go way too far. Because then I feel like I'm losing control.
It's that adapting, right?
Yeah.
You are going to adapt to the environment. But it always takes time, right? It takes something that pushes you to have to then find your area of authority and dominion, right? And so I always say, do you have dominion, authority, leading, or are you trying to be dominant, right? Leadership is not about domination, right? That's management. Right. You want to dominate the situation. And when you're managing it, there's sometimes egos that can get involved. There's, that's the title. When we talk about position, leadership is position, management is a title. Yeah. Right. And there's different things that can flow underneath that. Now, there's some good managers, right? But understanding, when I think of a manager, I think you manage systems and process. You don't manage people.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Right? You lead people, you manage the system and the process. But sometimes people have it in their mindset, that title, man, they get excited. It's a title on their door or their badge, wherever their workplace is, and it means something to them. Yeah. Right. And they forget that at the end of the day, their responsibility, duty is to lead. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Lead by example.
Well, you have to remember that all leaders manage, but not all managers lead.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Say it again.
All leaders manage, but not all managers lead. Leadership is about position.
Yeah.
Management is about title. You're right about that.
Yeah.
The position of leadership is out front. When we talk about leadership, for years, Maxwell talked about leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. Leadership is influence.
Yeah.
Well, that is kind of true. There's truth in that. All leaders influence.
Yep.
But not all influencers lead.
Yeah.
Leadership is example. That's why we say leadership is a position, because we say leadership is out front. Last week, I think it was a great podcast that we had. We've really been on this idea of going from transactional leadership to transformational leadership. In the model we talked about that I brought up is the cowboy that's on top, driving, to your point, demanding, dictating, and then you have a shepherd kind of mentality of leadership that goes out front and directs. Right. So dictating and directing, or demanding and directing, are two different things. There's a lot of demands that are placed by managers, and leaders do place demands on you.
Yeah.
However, those demands aren't for solely the benefit of that leader or that manager. It also benefits you, your team, and the organization.
Right.
One of the keys to motivating, I believe, managers to go from the old way of doing management to having empathy and caring about people and really supporting people and empowering them to not only do good, but to sustain that good long term and continue to build their team based on a leadership philosophy that says, in order for me to lead this team, I have to be first.
Right.
I have to set the example and go out front.
Yeah.
If I want trust in my team, guess who has to start trusting?
Yeah. That's
me.
Yeah. Leading in front, trusting. I mean, that's part of, we talk about leadership, and we define leadership different than a lot of people, right? Leadership, if you follow John Maxwell, the legend of leadership, right? He's many books on it. He says leadership is influence, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But when it comes to characteristics, when we break down leadership, we say leadership is
example.
And so, and even getting in even further down to that, right? Leadership begins with self-leadership, but leadership, is love, grace, and trust, right? And so you talk about trusting, right? On that factor alone, how is it that I can trust my team, but I don't trust myself, right?
Yeah.
How
Or
can
do
I,
you trust
or
your
do
team?
yourself? Yep. Yeah. Or either way, right?
Yeah.
Love yourself, but don't love your team, or you love your team, but the truth is you don't really,
And
love
you
yourself
can't
too
really
much.
you can't really trust others
Yeah.
until you learn to trust yourself.
Exactly.
You can't love people
You have to
well.
embody that.
You say it all the time. You can't give out what you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's why we talk about like practicing self-compassion,
Yeah.
self-grace. I wrote a whole thing on self-forgiveness the other day. Like, you have to continue to practice forgiveness. Like, what do you do when you fail?
Yeah.
How you treat yourself when you fail plays into how you treat your team when they do.
Yeah.
And if you're not showing yourself grace and compassion, you've not positioned yourself as a transformative leader in your own life.
Yeah.
And our whole team is focused on self-leadership, team leadership, business leadership, self-leadership, team leadership, business leadership. There is no business leadership without team leadership, because businesses are made of teams, and there's no team leadership without self-leadership, because teams are made of individuals.
Yeah.
This rehumanizes the business. It gets it back to, what about you, George? We have this large ecosystem of business going on all around us. Where are you at?
Yeah.
Right? What do you need from me as your leader?
Yeah.
Right? In order for you to succeed. Not, this is what I need from you in order for me to succeed as your leader. What do you need from me in order for you to succeed? That is shifting from that transaction of give me something and I'll give you something to I'm here for you.
Right.
Done. That's it.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned something I always kind of strive on is you can't give what you don't have. And I'll say this, and I used to have it. I had this team member, and I use that quote, like, it's impossible for you to lead, right? And give something to your team that you don't have.
Right.
And I said, what is it that I can do? And the response was, George, you're pouring into me. You're giving me. I said, well, then there's a problem, right? Have you ever tried to drink from a leaky cup? Yesterday, I had a water. We had a food truck here. Shout out to Scott Moorhead, the TCC team. Our round routine.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of food trucks out yesterday. Employee appreciation. And, we both got, some good food.
That wasn't no shitty food.
No, that was real good.
Like, let's put out the grills and make hot dogs for
everybody.
It was
a Sunday afternoon food coma meal. It was great.
I had jambalaya.
I had a shrimp. I had a catfish po' boy with some yams, some macaroni, some greens.
It's been a long time since I had jambalaya, and I'll say it this way: I thought I had jambalaya. Jambalaya had me.
Hey, we were out, but my water that I grabbed from the area had a leak in it, and I didn't. I had it. We had a huddle. The team had a huddle. We watched a little bit of that. I picked up my drink, and there was water there, and I'm like, I just thought it was condensation. I come to the office, and there's water there, and what I realized, Ryan, is that I have a leaky cup.
Yeah.
So no matter what I pour into that cup, and sometimes as leaders, whether you're being poured into or you're pouring into somebody else, you have to be able to understand your team members' needs and where they are. Because no matter how many times I fill up my cup, it does nothing if there's a leak.
Yeah,
right?
And I would say this. Let me take that a little further, because I love that analogy.
Yeah,
I would
the
say
leaky cup.
Well, I would say all the cups are leaky. Let's say it that way.
Okay.
Let's say every culture leaks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say every vision leaks. Let's say every company leaks.
Right.
Because it does.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to pour vision in before it starts to be embedded? A lot.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're constantly pouring into something that is going to continue to need to be poured into.
Right.
There's always going to be not only leaks when you go home, right? I mean, you go to a conference, you pay for a bunch of your leaders to go to a conference, and they're all excited and empowered.
Yeah.
And you realize that's a one-off surge of emotion. Then they get back, and you're like, what happened, guy? What happened? Everybody was real pumped, and 2 months later, all morale's down again. Training and development are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also say the reason why is every cup does leak.
Yeah.
We would like to think, let's focus on plugging the leaks.
Yeah.
And that's what most companies do. They focus on where are we leaking.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try to focus on the leaks all the time. And there's some good to that.
And the problem with that, Ryan, is that it's if you're going to focus on those, most people do this, right? They patch it.
Yeah.
They're not properly, because sometimes if you think of a roof leak, right, the easy fix is, man, my ceiling's leaking, and we just try to fix that ceiling, versus get on top of the roof and figuring out where the true damage is. You got to be able to get to the true damage. And the leadership, the true damage, and being able to do that, we're talking about, again, front line, boots on the ground, right?
Yeah. My daughter and her partner have an apartment, and water comes through the windowsill.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where the leak's at.
Yeah.
They can't find it.
Yeah.
There's water, and water will find its way to the easiest point, right?
Yeah.
Like it will flow. You have exactly what you're saying. You have to get to the deeper stuff. And a lot of these leadership trainings that are good as part of an overall strategy and development process are really lacking. Yeah. Because to your point, you can put on some new shingles. you can put on a new coat of paint. You can get a new set of values. Yep. You can do a values exercise. You can read a book about accountability and start implementing a bunch of accountability stuff overnight. The reason it's not sustainable is exactly what you're talking about. We've not gotten to the very deepest part of what really is the systemic reality that needs to change. Yep. This happens in companies when they're addressing DEI. This happens we're throwing patches and we're throwing Band-Aids and we're throwing optical surface kind of bullshit. But what is the very deepest part of it? You have a leadership team that doesn't believe in it, right? Yeah. You don't have a culture that feels it. They don't feel connected. They don't feel that collaboration. They don't feel that diverse is real, that diversity that we can celebrate and encourage each other in. If there's not that feeling and belief, it's not going to be followed up by behavior. Yeah. So we're training people to act like they feel and believe it. Yeah. We're training them to behave. Yeah. We have a bunch of people that are behaving. They're in captivity. Yeah. Yeah. And all the alpha wolves come up, and the people that talk the loudest, right? Yeah. That are the most dominant start to be placed into positions in leadership. And the people that are quiet and empathetic and caring about people generally stay on a team level. Yeah. And then they have to deal with the bullshit from people that we keep promoting above them. It's that has to change.
That leadership bully. That leadership bully that barks the loudest, that talks the loudest. In school, when we grew up, it was you always stayed away from the quiet kid. You knew the quiet person was one of the most dangerous people in the room. You don't know what they're practicing, whether it's jujitsu or like you don't mess with the quiet kid. Right. And in leadership, sometimes those quiet leaders are often overlooked because of that. And I think the problem with that, Ryan, when we talk about creating a culture of leadership, we need the perception. Let me say this: the perception of what leadership is the top. Right? It's that loud talking spotlight type of person. Yeah. Now, a lot of people may not understand this or maybe even know, but you and I are both outside of the camera and the lights here, like we're both introverts. You know, once we get out of the element and my office is across from yours, we're both like, sometimes the light will go off, the motion light will go off. And
you come over to my office and like, why are you in the dark, man?
Been in the dark for 2 hours, bro. Let's turn some light on. Let's lighten this up a little bit.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. But the introvert mindset, the world needs more than ever true, authentic leadership. Mm-hmm. And the perception of the tough leader, you know, for discipline purposes, man, we need more empathy. We need more compassion. Now, there has to be a time, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That the discipline has to be there, right? Correction has to be there. And I always say it's not what you say to me, Ryan, it's how you say it.
It's constructively.
Yeah.
Because constructively means that we do see where there needs to be correction. Mm-hmm. But constructive correction empowers you to take action based on what you see the future being for yourself, and it allows you to set up accountability for yourself.
Right.
That's what we're talking about in terms of example.
Yeah.
But we can't build a culture of accountability when leaders aren't accountable.
Yeah.
So here's the question. as we're sitting here, what are your leaders accountable to? Are they accountable to themselves, the values? If they're not living out the values of your business, there's no accountability. Right? So when we're trying to build a culture of accountability or anything else, when we're saying leaders are those that are positioned because they lead out front, not on top. That's a shift in an understanding, because now you have the full scope of the future in front of you and a team around you. As a matter of fact, when you're really leading transformatively, what you'll find is as you're leading out front, you'll see some of those that are on your team starting to come hand in hand with you. And then what's beautiful about transformative leadership, that you can start to see them excel and progress and be more successful into the future than you've ever been. And that's a powerful idea of, I'm not leading so that I can get other people to get me to where I need to be. That's not what a coach thinks. A coach thinks, I need to empower the team to be as successful as each individual can be, so they're equipped to support each other so that the team can win.
It's truly coming down, because the concept and sometimes the perception is that I'm Ryan's leader, so I got to bring Ryan up to me. Right? You're saying, no, we're going to come down to where you are, right? And I'm going to lead you where you are, versus trying to bring you and elevate you. Because I think a lot of times, and we see it a lot of times in companies, and they hire somebody that's been on their team, they elevate them, they promote them. Great. That's awesome. Internal promotion is awesome. But what good is it to promote somebody, right? And I've done this a time or two when we had our retail stores. We promoted somebody from where they were and they thrived to a leadership position, right? And then we're like, man, you're a terrible manager.
Well, interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
We didn't develop you. We didn't, and so we lose somebody because we took them from where they are and put them here, versus saying, hey, where you are, let me lead you from where you are. Well, and if that means you go here, great. But we got to start leading. But
again, there's with a different kind of concept, it's no longer promotion. Doesn't look like elevation. Because we're not looking at this anymore. We're looking at this. So promotion now, if there's a shift of leadership is positioned as an example out front, then promotion means I'm progressing, not elevating. So how are we progressing people? We're not elevating or promoting, we're progressing. You can't progress by just simply giving someone a new title. That again is exactly what we're talking about. Management versus leadership. And really it becomes that. So when we think about promotion, I want us to think about it not elevation, but progression. How are we out front as a leader with our team, and how are we calling back to those that are with us to say, come forward. Come forward with me. Let's build this trust together. Let's build this accountability together. Let's build this culture of care and concern, compassion, love, and grace together. That now becomes a promotion that equips and empowers, gets people moving in a direction together. If the direction is this way in a company, then as you progress as a business, your progression gets smaller and smaller as you go up. If your progression is forward as a company, and you have leaders that are setting the example and sharing the knowledge, skills, and abilities to empower people to come alongside them. Now we have a force for good, a movement of leaders and managers and supervisors and people in all kinds of roles across all functions and departments, across all leadership levels within the organization, as one collective movement, doing good, caring about the community, about each other and the customer. That's transformative.
We got a couple of minutes here. I want to kind of maybe give some steps within the strategy, right? For somebody who's wanting to create this culture of leadership, and where does it start? We always talk about engaging with the leader, right? Engaging with the CEO, engaging with, that person that's leading the way. And sometimes CEOs will give that, they have, culture leadership teams already in place, or, maybe it's the operations, maybe it's HR that kind of leads these, but really engaging with them. Some of the things that I thought that was important was identifying the desired business outcome. Like, what's the outcome and the purpose
Yeah.
of this leadership? What are leadership capabilities?
Mhm.
When we talk about a lot of these strategies, as we're out helping organizations and businesses, one of the things that we do at Culture Good is leadership development. We help go and implement these things within organization. Ryan, speak a little bit on that process. What does it look like? I don't want to say the 5 steps to whatever it may
I'll
be.
just give you 3 then.
Let's
or
talk
like
about
how
those.
it functions.
Yeah, let's talk about how that function. We're like, what are some things that we do? Talk about what we do when it comes to that process of, hey, leadership development begins here, and this is how we go about it.
Yeah, I think we have to first, as a company, begin to look at what does it mean? What does even leadership look like within the business? But the first step is going to be really a fact-finding mission. It's discovery. So we're discovering and developing based on observation and dialogue and learning, because we don't really know what the objectives and the goals of the company are. And we also don't know where there may be gaps in terms of skills, abilities, and knowledge. So we're really doing like a SWOT on the culture, on the leadership culture. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are opportunities and threats? Once that's identified, then we can recommend the next phase of designing and implementation. There's never a lack of great ideas. There's always a lack of implementation. Ideas have to have a plan. And so we're building and constructing a plan that can support development, not one-off trainings. That's the difference, right? One-off trainings will produce managers. Development will produce leaders. Because we're teaching and embedding and training. And so that becomes really a stage of implementation where we're looking at 3 areas of the business: self, team, and the business. How is it being supported on a quarterly basis? So that's part of the process. And then a lot of the next phase is about evaluation, right? We're evaluating the process. We're ensuring that the outcomes of what you spoke to, that the business really wants to move toward, that's the direction that we're going, and it's the outcomes that we're moving toward. Are we hitting the mark? How do we quantify and measure the actual progress? Is this going well? Right? And what do we need to change about this? What have we learned in the last few months working as a collective? And we really love to partner and not be the face. As a consultant in a company, we want the face to be the leaders within the business. This is an internal movement that empowers people in great ways to lead their team. And then the result is the whole business. Awesome stuff.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that opportunity. Once again, Champion Your Culture, sponsored by Culture of Good. We want to thank everybody again for joining in and watching us live. And we're excited, man. We're growing. Spotify, Google Play, Apple, all those platforms, wherever you find us at, remember to subscribe, rate, like, and make sure that you're checking in. So we appreciate that as well.
And we are excited because we will be back with you next week.
Back and better.
Almost every damn week we're here.
Every Wednesday.
Live with you. And like George said, you can listen anytime. Thank you so much for joining with us. We appreciate every single one of you. We're sending you love, grace, and compassion, and good vibes, y'all.
And we want to say happy International Women's Day. It's International Women's Day to all of the awesome women out there that's doing great work. Wherever you are, if you hear this, we want to say we love you. You're doing great. We honor you today, and we hope you have a blessed one.
Peace out. We'll see you back next week on
Champion Your Culture.